All right. All right. So we're now recording and let me do this and share the screen. Uh-oh, that's not it. Let me know when you can see it. Sorry. Let me do that one more time. All right. Okay. So here we go. Here is our class page. And let's see, everybody. We are, my goodness, we are in week 5. So let me click on week 5. Okay. And so typically what we'll do is, Professor Moore, we have the week 5 discussion post, which is normal.
Mhm.
And we're in Leviticus this week. And did you want to talk about the midterm?
Yes, so I saw that I think a couple people have submitted. I'm going.
Wonderful.
I want to visit it. Of course, you can pull it up if you don't mind. Um,
Okay.
it is.
You see if it'll open up.
I think it will. I don't think it wants to be contrary to you this evening.
Sometimes you all let me know what you see on the screen. Okay. Do you
We
see the midterm exam on the screen now?
we see the attachment. I think you attached
Attachment,
it.
yes.
Yeah, I think it's something about teams like when you go to something and then you start opening it up, it doesn't follow you. So okay, so let me do it again.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, let me know if you see it now.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, cool.
Hmm.
So, as you're able to see, the midterm is on the screen. The benefit of this midterm is that, um, I'll say, per the grandmother clause, you you are able to utilize your text, which is not just beneficial from the perspective of um, the potential grade implications, but for us, the expectation is that we will benefit along with yourselves at the quality of responses you provide in these questions. Um, it's
Hmm.
it's important uh, because of the size of the midterm and the length, and because you have other assignments that do here and there, um, that you don't necessarily have to give. You want, now I do want to say, you do want to follow the prescribed specification. So if it says answer in at least 4 sentences, please indulge, because I think in grammar school they teach a solid paragraph is 4 to 5 sentences,
Uh-huh.
um, and in a more lengthier fashion, like 5 to 7, which is what you all are already accustomed to doing with your discussion responses. And we're very, very appreciative, let me say at the footnote, very, very appreciative of the thoughtfulness that's going into these responses. Very, very grateful for them. Uh, Mr. Martin, good evening. Martins, I believe it's with an S. Good evening to you. Grateful to have you with us tonight. Um, Very solid, solid, thoughtful responses, and I'm extremely grateful because as we shared in the first class discussion, even for individuals who do not subscribe religiously
Hmm.
to, in this case, Old Testament Hebrew Bible, or the New Testament, or the Greek Testament, if you will, it is still regarded as sacred, as something that is timeless, so to speak, and has so much of a wealth of history and inspiration and information, instruction in it. And so I'm grateful that you are displaying um, your careful reading, not just of the textbook, but of the scripture itself. Biblical studies does not happen without the scripture.
Right.
And those who have tried to finagle their way around it, they fail very effectively, because without it, you are at best, like I said, looking at it from the standard of literature review and
Mhm.
not really giving your full self to it.
Yeah.
So the questions are here. We're asking that you would again um, look at what's being asked, and that you would resist the urge to move swiftly through everything. Take your time with it. You still have time to
Mhm.
submit the midterm in particular. So don't rush through it, but really do yourself a good service, as you all have been doing well all semester long, and really making a strong statement with the submission of this midterm. Um, it is there. I debated an extra credit question that might appear
Okay.
on the final. And if it does, I'll give you a heads up. It's
Don't
just
worry.
not going to appear, but I'll give you a heads up. And your class is responsible. Just as a hint, your class is responsible for this extra credit. I saw something in a couple of the posts,
Mhm.
and it struck curiosity, and so I think it'll be a fun kind of addition, but we'll talk more about that a little later. For now, it's the midterm. Midterm won't change. It is what it is,
Okay.
and looking forward to receiving your responses. Um, let's take a look at what's before us for this week, and then I want to spend just a couple minutes. We want to do a walkthrough of this week, which is week 5. We're looking at Leviticus, answer any questions that might be there, and then we want to um, go back to week 4 and just see if there's anything anybody wanted to elaborate on, or if there's any, I'll say, unresolved issues of the text. Um, that phrase unresolved issues, for those of you who attend Sunday school, for those of you who attend church, who hear sermons and messages, um, the preacher and the teacher can't deal with everything.
For sure.
It's impossible. You cannot say or share all that you would like to in one span of time. And so one of the hidden benefits of the way this course is designed is that these check-ins aren't just a normal kind of Q&A from an institutional perspective. Anybody have any questions about the syllabus or the policy for late assignments, things like that? Yes, we can address those things, but with respect to the class, because of how this class is outlined and because everyone here has very eventful schedules, it's important for us that we make time, make space for everybody to have as much or as little conversation and engagement as possible. I think it's very, very helpful to know um, that you have that measure of camaraderie with your classmates, with your colleagues, which is also why, for those who might ask, why do we have to respond to at least 2 of our classmates? It's about engagement.
Mhm.
It's very simple. Um, Persons share, and one of the unique things about um, you all's responses thus far, at least from my perspective, is you're looking at the same material. You all are reading the same chapters week to
Mhm.
week, but your responses all come from a different vantage point.
Mhm.
There's some similarities, yes, because like I said, it's the same stuff, so you can't really go too far away, but everybody is looking at it sitting in a different seat, looking at the same picture, but seeing it from the place of a different seat. And that is the wonder of the scripture, that you can see something over and over, or that multiple people can look at the exact same thing, but your response to it is different.
Yes.
And I'm really, really appreciative of that. So, chapter
Okay.
6, Leviticus.
Mhm.
Any questions about this? Has anybody already started working through it? What are your thoughts about it?
Well, yes, I have started, and I will say that I'm the type of person that doesn't like to wait until the last minute. So even though we have a due date,
Mm-hmm.
you will find with me I submitted very early. And I was going to ask you about that. And
Hmm.
it's not because I'm doing it like swiftly or quickly
Yeah,
or
no, no,
so
no.
I spend a lot of time in the class book as well. And I think I mentioned this to you. My brother gave me
For the
uh,
commentary.
a commentary, yes,
Mhm.
and it's a huge one. And in the beginning of each chapter of the books in the Bible, it gives you a historical, geographical, and it's a wealth of information. And so I will be carrying around these heavy books because our class book is heavy and that is heavy. So I'll be carrying it up and down the stairs. But I appreciate the opportunity and, the options that I do have to do the study and the research on the questions and things and the discussions that we are presented. And I appreciate you and Professor Berry for giving us these options because it does make you think. It really does make you think, and it sticks with you because if you just, you know, skim over it and answer the question without doing the research, for me especially, it doesn't stay with me as long as it would if I was, doing the research and really studying them. So, like I said, I appreciate the opportunity. And I often chuckle when you say 4 to 6 sentences. I said, there's no way in the world that I can just put it, all my information into 4 to 6. So I hope that doesn't, hinder
No,
me in the sense of,
no,
the grades or whatever,
yeah,
because
no.
I often have more than,
And
the 4 or 6 sentences.
sure, and you're not by yourself for the record. Because and it's just Professor Barry, we can go to the purpose of the
Okay.
book. Thank you for pulling this up. We're gonna touch on who wrote it, but we can keep going down to the next slide. Um, some things strike you more than others, and because and I think the both of us, Professor Barry and I, appreciate this. We have students who are genuinely interested in the subject matter.
Hmm.
That's part of why these courses have been sustained the last several years. Because even if people come with a lot of skepticism or a lot of, I'll say, unfounded opinions, the scripture is still the scripture, the Bible is still the Bible, and
Yeah.
people from literally every walk of life have some measure of curiosity and interest in it, no matter how small it might be. There's something about this book, there's something about these two testaments, the
Hmm.
old one in particular, which we're walking through this semester, that is of interest to everybody. And so, with respect to the book of Leviticus, we know that it's one of the five of the Pentateuch, the five books. Leviticus begins to expand upon the order of Israel and the priesthood. The purpose of this third book is to present a type of manual for the Israelite people. It is the instruction on holy living. Moses was given these commands to give to the people. He was given godly information at the tent of meeting, which is in Leviticus first chapter, first verse.
Hmm.
Anybody know the significance of the tent of meeting? What's significant about the tent of meeting?
Wasn't that the era where God gave Moses the commandments to give to the people of Israel when they had come out of bondage.
Yes,
And
so
and as you
yes,
yeah, and as
yes,
you said, in here it said that the book of Leviticus is like a manual slash um, um, instructional, instrument for these people because God wanted them to be holy as He was holy.
sure. That is absolutely correct. Um, it was established, the tent of meeting that is, in the same time frame as when Moses received the commandments. Because keep in mind, Moses received the commandments while they're in transit. So
Hmm.
the Exodus narrative is still playing out.
Hmm.
Um, some people and I'll say it's accidental, mistakenly think, without reading everything around it, that the commandments were given right around the time of them being settled. No, they partially settled in a space, but they were still in movement toward the promised land. The
Right.
10th meeting is also significant because it is, if I can use this term, it
Mhm.
is the precursor or the ancestor to the temple.
Mhm.
So the first, I'll say, settlement, the first quote unquote residence for God,
Spirit.
uh, is the tent of meeting.
Mhm.
You have the tent of meeting, and shortly after that, they create the Ark of the Covenant, which sat in the tent
Mhm.
of meeting. But that was temporary.
Mhm.
We would assume that God foreknew that a formal house would be erected for the worship of God and the practice of the religious ordinances that God put forth. So just keep that in mind, if you should ever see it again. And whenever you read the scripture, whenever you see the tent of meeting, you know that was the first formal kind of edifice, so to speak, makeshift, if you will.
Right.
Where God was formally sought and worshiped.
Hmm.
And it's the tent of meeting, of course, because just like modern day tents, it was easier to manage while in travel. You could put it
Right.
up and break it down and keep moving.
Yep.
What was going on in the background as this book was written? That is next slide for this. And please, please continue to take advantage of these wonderful PowerPoint presentations and the supplemental support that is available week to week. Um, Israelite Hebrew people were not the only ones on earth. I think most people would agree with that.
Hmm.
You also had, in particular, the Egyptians and the Canaanites who had religions too. But the Hebrew religion was different. It had the concept of one God, monotheism. What's the opposite of monotheism? Anybody?
Mono is
Mhm.
mono is one.
Right.
What was the other word? Oh, ooh, many. What was
Right.
many? I
Many,
can't.
many
I
is the
can't remember the
definition.
word for many.
It
Oh God.
begins with a P.
So
Polytheistic.
yeah. Okay. Poly is many.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
Duh.
polytheism, which was practiced by Egyptians and Canaanites,
Hmm.
is the worship of multiple gods.
Right.
But monotheism is a concept that does come with the rise of Israelite religion, and God saying, um, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one."
Yep.
Um, the understanding of the origin of sin, a highly ethical and moral nature, no human sacrifices. All of these things are outlined in great detail in the book of Leviticus. What is this is maybe a trick question. What is what name do you hear in Leviticus?
What name
What
What
name?
what name
in the word Leviticus?
in the word Leviticus?
Oh, that's good.
Oh, what name in Leviticus?
Name.
Oh, Levi.
Bingo. Got
Oh
it.
yeah, that's good, Gene. Very good.
You got it. You got it.
Oh my God, I hadn't thought of it that way.
I right, right. Me too. And I'm sitting here like Lev.
So here again, that's another thing to keep in your tool chest, so to speak,
Hmm.
um, because as with modern day English, Greek, Hebrew, and especially Latin,
Mm.
um, those foundational languages for modern day language, there is there's that root, there's that base, and you can literally sometimes discern what something says or what something means based on that. And so Leviticus, Levi, um, Levitical. We know that this book in particular has to do with, as the outline says, order, the ethical, the moral standard, um, very staunch position from God's self on holiness, and Sister Jean, in terms of our Pentecostal sisters and brothers, the origins of sanctification,
Mm-hmm.
um, what to wear, how to wear it, um, when to clean, when not to clean, when to eat, what to eat, when. All these things are outlined
Mm.
here. And so that's another item, just like I said, to hold on to.
Okay.
Five
Wow.
basic types of sacrifice. This is very good because you see on this slide at the very last icon is no human sacrifices. So there were neighboring countries that did practice that, but God was adamantly against it. Um, and even if somebody did not read Leviticus, you can go back to Genesis and see a major example of how God was against human sacrifice. And I'll bring that back up in a second. The purpose and message of Leviticus. The central message, and it really is the central string through the entire book.
Right.
Lifestyle, living, being holy, holy living. Um, and this is pronounced in the 11th chapter, verses 44 and 45. This biblical book is a manual or a handbook.
And
So, as a footnote, um, Lutherans, which is a branch of Christianity, believe that the Ten Commandments symbolize the fact that we are sinners, that these commandments exist because people by naturally go against commandments.
mm-hmm.
But Presbyterians, Methodists, other Protestant groups, they understand differently that the Ten Commandments were created to help us live right. The Ten Commandments don't exist because we're wrong. They existed or were created because it was encouragement and guidance to help us live right.
Right.
And that's something I share that primarily because it's important that when having conversations about scripture, we be careful not to especially when you're having a conversation with somebody and you all are going through these classes and earning certifications and degrees and such, and you're in conversation with people who you know haven't done the kind of work that you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
You want to abstain as much as possible from any judgmental positions
Oh yeah.
because they approach it largely based upon what they think or what they feel. You are approaching it primarily based on what you know to be true.
Yes.
And so I just
Mm.
want to keep that. Common things of people devoted to God became holy through the mutual efforts, there's that word, of sanctification through these cleansing practices. So the five basic types of sacrifices that were used in worship and celebrations. Let's scroll down and check them out. Mr. David, did you want to chime in? I saw you went back out. I'm glad you were able to get back in. I think he's good. He's here. We're glad you're here,
I think so.
listening and
Yes.
sharing. All right. We can go down. Professor Barry, thank you so much
Okay. Keep
for
going down.
facilitating. Yes, ma'am. Thank you
Okay.
so very much for facilitating.
Hmm.
Um, I need to confess, and this is being recorded, so I can't deny it. I owe Professor Barry now a couple chicken boxes, a bushel of crabs, and a few crab cakes. My tab has
Yeah,
been
bring it
filled.
on.
So y'all pray for me because I'm gonna have to owe her a whole seafood restaurant by the time this.
Uh-oh. Well then you can add my name to the list too, because I love seafood. Even though I'm allergic to shrimp, there are
Oh
other
no.
things that I can partake of.
Okay. All right. Look, duly noted. Duly noted. Duly noted. We got it for sure. Cereal
I'm
or
just
grain
kidding.
offering, fellowship or peace offering, the whole burnt offering, the sin offering, and the guilt or trespass offering. So, cereal or grain offering, what do you think that that relates to?
I was going to ask you to delve into that because when I saw this, it was not confusing, but you see a lot of things in scripture and you try to, I guess, disseminate or understand before you really do the, thorough research. And I see that these are types of sacrifices they were used in worship or celebrations. Now, did they bring these things, well, it says there, as a sacrifice? Because I know, back in their time, they used different things for sacrificial offerings. And they would bring the things that they raised, like the cereal, the grain. But I know that each of them have a significant meaning. Now, would the cereal and grain be something from the earth that they were offering? And and I know that they honored a lot of things in their religion.
Right. So, good questions. Good questions. Um, let me begin a response to your question by affirming that each offering has a purpose, and
Okay.
they are outlined normally how it is. Um, Either God gives the type of offering, defining what it represents, or God gives a description and then classifies it. This will be known as the sin offering or something to that extreme, um,
Hmm.
to that extent. So cereal or grain offering, yes, has to do with um, produce. What the people create, cultivate, that is offered back to God.
Hmm.
It is akin to first fruits and things of that language and nature in Old Testament. Fellowship or peace offering, whole burnt offering, sin offering, all of them. The purpose is in the name itself. So, for example, you have number 4 and 5 on this list, the sin offering and the guilt or trespass offering. That's a significant distinction because a lot of people say, well, that's the same thing. It's not. Um, in the Lord's Prayer, Jesus says, forgive us our trespasses
Hmm.
as we forgive those trespass against us.
Hmm.
So the understanding is, theologically, you can only sin against God because God is holy,
Hmm.
and sin opposes that which is holy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Versus, now you can be guilty of sin as well, versus guilt or trespass, which is human. So the difference between the two is sin offering has to do with a divine issue. So you're coming against, or you're guilty of acting against God or the divine.
Okay. Okay.
Guilt or trespass is a human transaction. If you stole 2 of my sheep, or I gave you something shrimp flavored when you just told me that you were allergic to shrimp,
Hmm.
I have trespassed against you.
Oh,
Albeit it
oh,
might have been delicious, I'm still in the wrong because
okay.
I have trespassed against you, which is why Jesus said in that prayer, trespasses is person to person. You don't trespass against God because in a sense, you can't steal from God. You can't break into um, any space that God is and remove from God what belongs to God or what's God's property in a spiritual matter of speaking. Now, people unfortunately have gone into temples and churches and stolen in those spaces, but that's different.
Okay.
That's the distinction there. Though all of these offerings were received by way of the priesthood, but there are specific purposes attached to all of them. Now, whole burnt offering is related to sin offering in that fire, animal sacrifices, anything dealing with cleansing. Fire purifies, water rinses or cleanses. The sin offering dealt with the animals that were associated with those things. Anything that remotely looks like wiping a slate clean is categorized in these. And of course, number two, the fellowship of peace offering, which can be related to a couple of these. So after you have made offering for sin, which was an early form of atonement by way of sacrifice, after you have made offering for guilt or trespass, it can be confirmed depending on the scenario with the fellowship of peace offering. Also, after times of conflict, physical conflict, or territorial conflict, family conflict. Okay, we're calling the truce. Not going through this anymore. This is the peace offering. That's where that phrase comes from. I'm saying
Wow.
I'm saying with this gesture, I don't have aught with you. I'm trusting you don't have aught with me. And when things could not be settled, there's that prayer in the Old Testament, may the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent from another. That's not necessarily what people think it is, but I won't address that tonight.
Okay.
Um, it was kind of like kind of like in The Color Purple. Until you do right by me,
Mm-hmm.
that may the Lord watch.
What's
So
between me and
we're going separate ways because we're never going to come to agreement. We're never going to get along like we should. So the Lord's
wow.
watch between both of us. And if you should do something behind my back or in my absence, God's going to get you. And the same thing for me. That's what that was. It was kind of a verbal contract slash curse situation that, listen, because this is the way it is and we can't come to agreement, may the Lord watch between me and you while we're absent one from another. Now, of course, modern day churches have made it a lot more friendly, and that's good. But because you all are studying and putting work in, you should know the background behind that.
Right, right.
So,
Okay.
so
Good.
if you hear that after a church meeting or something, you might laugh just like you did because depending on who's saying it, it might explain why,
Uh-huh.
why it was
Okay,
said.
okay.
Yeah, just a little religious humor there.
Wow.
So, this is a snapshot of those five basic types of offerings. And then I like this caption: "What's up with the blood?
Mm.
Humans are human, and we sin. God in Leviticus gives us this guide to live right, and just in case we do wrong, here's the word again: there's atonement. Atonement is payment. That's what that word really means. When you atone for something, you're making a payment for it. It's because sin, as it is understood, like I said, it's a negative transaction between people and God. And so if you sin against a God who is blameless, faultless, holy, really beyond perfection, you automatically are in debt. Because if God is the source of life and God has given you life, if you're not dead, you have life, God's responsible for that. And to sin against God is to be that much more in debt for you going against
Yeah.
the one who gives you life in the first place.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Because when I was reading this, the atonement, and where it says here, atone an appropriate sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What what would determine an appropriate sacrifice?
Excellent. It is in the book of Leviticus, particularly for that time. God specifies through Moses and the scribes, because in that first slide, talk about the authorship.
Mhm.
Most people accredit the 5 books with Moses, but there's some discrepancies there because the timelines don't necessarily add up between when he was alive versus when they were recorded and
Yeah.
shared. So let's just say several people supported him in composing these. And
Hmm.
those people recorded through what he shared, because remember, ancient history was never necessarily, there were scribes, but before scribes, they received what was to be written word of mouth. So histories were passed down generation to generation, because you've heard this term before, because the griots, the storytellers, were also the history keepers.
Yeah.
And so what was appropriate to your question in terms of atonement and sacrifice and offering was based on what God shared as God's preference for various sins. So that there would be no, and that's part of why going against these rules and regulations kind of incurred severe consequences, because the people didn't make these up. They were recorded from God himself. So,
Mhm.
it's one thing for the people to give Moses a headache, but then there's several times in Exodus included where God's like, I'm going to take them all out
Yeah.
because they're giving you a hard time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if they're giving you a hard time, that means that they're being disrespectful to me because you're my spokesperson.
Yeah.
You're my representative. And so, um, who or what determines what was appropriate? God, by way of those who received the instructions.
Okay.
Killing of an animal, often extremely messy, gory, gruesome. But the reason was that the blood was necessary in Hebrew religion and it represented life.
Hmm.
This is significant because here again, remember you all know the Bible is an ancient book. The Bible is a Eastern, in parentheses, I say African based book. And so blood, yes, symbolizes life, as did water. Um, and that a infraction or error against life required life for life. That's why the Mosaic word was eye for eye, tooth for
I,
tooth.
2 for 2. Yeah.
That there has to be an equity in the the penalty and the payment.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can't give me
Consequence.
that's right. You can't
Yeah.
give me less than what I'm owed.
Yeah.
So you got to meet me at the level.
Mm.
Animal sacrifices were not intended to save people from their sin or get them into heaven. That's important because while they were pardoned, here again, it was with the understanding, okay, now that you have a clean slate, get back with this thing on holiness and
Mm.
living, as we would say, the narrow way, walking
Hmm.
the narrow,
Walk straight and narrow.
straight and narrow.
Hmm.
Um, Instead, it helped, here it is, keep a healthy relationship between God and the people.
Okay.
One of the things I would share with you all, um, and feel free to share it wherever you like. While a lot of people have limited the scripture to a whole lot of rules and regulations and do's and don'ts, and that is in there, this whole book, both testaments, spells out how serious God is about being in relationship with people.
Mm.
God's priority, and there's some who would debate me on this, and I'm okay with that. God's priority, I believe, is relationship, communion, covenant with people, not dictating what you're supposed to do every minute of every hour of every day. Yes, God requires obedience, but God gifted us with free will so
Mm-hmm.
that when we do what we do based on what God said, it's because we choose to. God gets much more out of that than people feeling forced like they got to do something
Mm-hmm.
and then going in the opposite direction or being rebellious. It just uh, it just works that way. I think it works best when it's authentic, when it's
Right.
real.
Mm-hmm.
So we're moving down. Um, I
They
want
give you a
to
lot to think about, that's for sure.
for sure, for sure, for sure.
Ooh. Wow.
So Leviticus trivia. Read Leviticus 10. Who are Abihu and Nadab? What did they do wrong? So I'm not going to respond to this because we have some classmates here. Some of you all will see this recording later. If you want uh, some extra love at the end of the semester, let us know in your
Can
next.
we can we email you?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Email us. Let us know the response to this. The good news is you can go back and pull this question up tonight, tomorrow. Uh, Read that chapter, chapter 10. Who were Abihu and Nadab? What did they do wrong?
Okay.
That's a easy bonus for you, and I look forward to the
All
responses.
right.
Look forward to the
Gotcha. I
responses.
got you.
Yes, indeed. Any questions before we wrap this up? Actually, I think
No,
we're at the end here.
this has been
Okay.
good.
All righty. That is a snapshot of otherwise what would be a very long and drawn out discussion on Leviticus. Um, some people, people find Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus interesting. But when you get to
Yeah.
Numbers and Deuteronomy, particularly Numbers, because Numbers is a book of statistics.
Numbers. Oh
That's why
wow.
that's why it's called Numbers. It's a
There's
lot.
a reason for it.
It's a
For
lot of
sure.
statistics.
Yep.
Uh, People have used it from time to time to take a nap, um, but it's all good. So
Oh,
that's a snapshot of what's happening for
okay.
text this week. As always, please know you have the right of way to reach out. Um, Not just with respect to that trivia question, but questions, comments, concerns, um, anything that does not settle well with you according to the readings. If you have questions about stuff connected to the readings or stuff that's not connected to the readings, um, I think I'm safe in speaking for Professor Berrianda that we welcome questions, we welcome those comments and concerns because, to be quite honest, one of the blessings of sharing in these spaces is that there is a reciprocity in learning.
Hmm.
I will walk away from this semester um, having a greater sense of certain things based on what you all have shared week to week
Hmm.
in your writing, in these check-in sessions, uh, and that's important.
Exactly.
As like I said, I may have a position on certain things. I may, like I said, have orientation, for lack of a better word, but based on this experience, I have spent time with people and have been opened up to some different ways to see things. Like I said, you all are responding every week to the same questions. You're reading the same material, but everybody sees a little something different,
Something
and
different.
it's a good kind of different.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
nobody nobody has been guilty of looking at Exodus and talking about Jesus turning water into wine. If that had been the
Oh
case,
God.
we would have had some concerns. But everybody has been on point, and I am so very appreciative um, of the ways in which you all have devoted yourselves to
Exactly.
these studies. You're going to help, whether you know it or not, you're going to help quite a few people, family, friends, and otherwise, because you have devoted yourself to this level of study.
I
And
pray that I do.
yeah,
Yeah.
I believe that you will. I believe you're doing it already.
When I
Uh,
get back to my Sunday school class, because I haven't taught Sunday school in about a month,
okay.
and because I've not been there. But like you just said, we have gotten and we are continuing to get a wealth of information, from these classes, and I'm really enjoying them. I really am. It, puts me
I,
where puts me where I need to be in the Word.
I'm grateful for
Yes.
that,
Yes.
sincerely, sincerely so. Well, I think if there are no additional questions, um, gentle reminders about, like I said, that you guys are great with the deadline, so I really don't have any concerns with that. We're trying to make sure that we're keeping up with grades, um, and I can tell you up front that your midterm grades will not just reflect the specific midterm, but it will be a culmination of everything you've done up until this point, so that you're not shortchanged. Um, Good news is everybody is in a pretty good place, a really good place, I think. Um,
Wonderful.
this is a wonderful group, uh,
Sounds
a
good.
special class, and so you guys are doing exceptionally well. And again, I just my hats off to each of you because, as I said, I know that this class is one of several things you have going on, uh, but it is evident week to week that you are taking it seriously, and that's motivation for us, to share and to engage, um, because this is really important work.
Yeah,
And,
it is.
and
Work
so,
of the Lord.
yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
Appreciate you too.
Yeah.
So,
Have a wonderful evening.
you do the same. Professor
Yeah.
K, anything before we?
No, that will be it. Everybody just make sure that you get your midterm in. I believe the date is November the 5th.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And
Okay.
that is it.
And
Okay.
yep, so that's it. We'll be on the lookout for those emails from Leviticus 10.
Okay.
Yes.
And we will respond.
All right. I
We'll
know
respond.
you will.
Yes, indeed. All right. Have
All
a
right.
wonderful evening.
Have
And
a
Have a
we'll
good
have
see
a
you next.
good rest of the evening. Be safe, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye-bye.